Good morning. We'll call the May 13th regular council meeting to order. Councillor Aberley, can you hear us okay? Perfect. We'll start off with open microphone. Was there anybody registered? No? Okay. Looking for approval of the agenda. I've got a couple of changes to make. Councillor Neilson.
I would request that we move closed session to the top of the order, please.
Okay, so we'll move that right after adoption of the minutes.
Thank you.
And we've got 10.7 staff report for decisions under waste and recycling. So first, changing the order, council's approval of moving closed session up. Those in favor? Carried. And item 10.7, waste and recycling. Those in favor? Carried. Anything else from administration? No? Okay. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, and we're going to move delegation up just before closed session. Thanks, Karen. Just so that Mr. Garner doesn't have to sit here for the morning. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Adoption of the minutes. Councillor Elliott, any errors or omissions? We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Would you like to move the special council meeting minutes as well? Okay. Councillor Elliott, any errors or omissions? We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Carried. Perfect. All right, we'll go to our delegation. Mr. Garner. Dean, is that mic on? Perfect. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. I assume this is about a permit for property south of my place regarding concrete storage that you guys are voting on today. That's what the email was and the information I got from the city of Wetaskiwin. Is anybody aware of that?
Just make sure you just move up into the mic.
Is anybody aware of that there's a permit?
Yes.
Yeah, just go ahead.
For today? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead with your presentation,
Okay, so the question is, and it's been a question I've had for the last, well, geez, about 3 years. There is no permit for the property. It's DECM, Direct Environmental Control Management, is the property which is directly south of me. I've been here before. It shows on the list. I was here on August 22nd, 2022. To me, I'm curious as to what the permit process is in this city. Can I build a hotel, build a parking lot, and then ask for a permit? Or can I just, do I need a permit before I continue with work? What I would ask the council too, before you vote on this, because you guys have the choice and the decision to go ahead and approve or not approve, is please drive out there. It is a residential neighborhood, okay? Everything along Airport Road is residential. Everything east, the new subdivision, is residential. And right snap dab in the middle of it is this dumping ground that has no permit to do what they're doing. I've asked. I've gone to the city many times. The peace officer told me there was a stop work order issued. Work continues. So I don't get why we're giving a permit to somebody who doesn't follow the rules of having a permit. Like if I want to build something, you ask for a permit before you start building something. You don't do it and then say, oh geez, somebody complained, now I need a permit. It's an absolute embarrassment that nobody has done anything about this, right? And today, you're going to vote on it, and one of the councillors owns the property. So I guess in that question, is that councillor have a vote on the decision? I'm just curious. Like the truck traffic, the road is garbage to begin with. They paved up to by the lake park, up to the intersection, and then it's gravel. There's truck traffic, dust, noise. Is there, like, I just don't see why you would put, what is it called here? They call it a concrete storage. Well, if you drive by there, it's the farthest thing from a concrete storage. there's asphalt, there's old culverts, and if you go east of the property, it's like a pick apart. There's Winnebagos, trailers, trucks, I don't know what it is. So if we're gonna approve this, can we approve it in a matter of what the permit asks for? It says concrete storage. So does concrete storage include everything and anything? Because if that's the case, can I do whatever I want on my property and come to you guys in 6 years and say, oh geez, sorry, I'd now like to have a permit to do whatever I want? The property is an embarrassment, and either way, I know what's gonna happen. You guys are gonna approve it. So my next question would be, it talks about landscaping. Within so many meters, a landscaping plan for 18 months. What is the landscaping plan? Before you approve it, what is the landscaping plan? Are we gonna plant 6-inch trees, so in 50 years, I don't have to look at that garbage? Or are we gonna force the person to put up an actual landscaping plan that I don't have to look at it? Because it's not just me. There's a property just east of me in the same situation. If you please, before you say yay or nay, drive by, look at it. And imagine yourself living where I live and looking at that, and when I bought the place, there's never been a permit for what's happening there. But yet it continues. There was supposed to be a stop work order. I'm just really confused. I've been here before. I've asked the questions. I've talked to the city of Wetaskiwin, and what I always get is, we're looking into it, and we're gonna get back to you, Mr. Garner. And most of the time, nobody gets back to me without me following up. So I don't know. You guys have the decision, as councillors, to yay or nay this. If you're gonna approve it, please, make sure the people that live by there are not affected by the noise, the dust, the traffic, right? We don't have a paved road. It's not suitable for heavy haul traffic. Never mind a bloody personal vehicle going down that road for most times. So I'm just curious, does anybody have some insight into that? Does anybody know what's going on? Like, you guys are gonna vote on it. Is any of the councillors aware of what you're voting on? Or the mayor? Is anybody aware?
Absolutely.
100%. So
Yeah.
what, you've been out there, Mr. Gandam?
Yes,
Mr.
I
Mayor?
have.
Yeah?
Yeah, and
Okay.
talked to you a number of times.
Okay.
Yeah.
And any other councillors? Okay. And what are your thoughts, I guess is the question.
So in the delegation, it's for you to present to us.
Okay.
It's not a,
Okay,
yeah.
sorry, that's my
No,
bad.
that's okay.
So yeah, I guess I would like you to consider yourself, when you go out there and look, if you're willing to go out there and look, put yourself in my shoes. There's been work going on there for 6 years since I moved there. The work load has escalated, the property has expanded, the dumping has been there, but yet there has never been a permit for it, ever issued for it. There's supposed to be a stop work order. Work continues. Can somebody, I don't know, enlighten me as to the stop work order? Was there a stop work order? Ever? Interesting. I don't know. I'm looking for answers, because I never get any answers. And now we've come to the point where you're gonna vote on it. And I'm just curious as to where we're at. And I guess it's just me speaking, you guys can't provide answers, but I hope somebody will look into it and say what is going on here. There is no permit, but yet work continues. And I will say, in closing, because it's basically all I've got to do is have the opportunity to speak, is that I could build a brothel, have it active, finish the parking lot, and then somebody complain, and I would be here asking for a permit. If nobody complained, my brothel continues, I make money, everybody's happy. The process is broken, as far as I'm concerned, 100%. Anyways, if somebody could get back to me as to the permit process, what you guys decide. If you do decide to go ahead with the permit, please, the landscaping would be the biggest thing. And not landscaping for 50 years, landscaping now. 8-foot trees planted, 3-foot rows, noise barriers, road improvement, so that I'm not getting blasted with dust and crap and corrupt. The property, they grind the concrete up, they take it away, there's dust, there's noise. Limits to hours of operation would be another thing. Saturday, Sundays it happens, there is no control. And I pay a lot of taxes for very little, so at least let my tax dollar speak. That's why I'm here to speak. And will somebody let me know when the permit decision is made? And based on how it's going to be made and what the stipulations are for the permit?
Yeah, so all of our council meetings are live and recorded.
Okay.
So all of that discussion will be on our YouTube channel.
Okay. Perfect. Well, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Owen.
It's been a process, and I've never gotten the answers, so
Councillor Blatz.
I move that City Council accepts the presentation from Owen Garner on May 13, 2024 as information.
Moved by Councillor Blatz. Any discussion? We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Looking for a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Councillor Neilson. Those in favor? right, need a motion to come out of closed session, please.
So moved.
Councillor Billingsley, those in favor? Carried, thank you. All right, I need to go back and figure out where we were. Item 5.1, notice of motion. Councillor Neilson. Make sure your mic's on.
You bet. Thank you. I would like to move that City Council lifts from the table motion 5/24 that reads that City Council rescinds motion 142/23 from the May 8th, 2023 regular council meeting, which stated, move that City Council approves the direct control permit application for the Hope Mission Shelter. City Council directs administration to ensure that the fencing for the Hope Mission Shelter aligns to the building code and is aesthetically pleasing.
Moved by Councillor Neilson. Any discussion? We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Carried.
Thank you. I would now like to move that City Council rescinds motion 142/23 from the May 8th, 2023 regular council meeting, which stated, move that City Council approves the direct control permit application for the Hope Mission Shelter. City Council directs administration to ensure that the fencing of the Hope Mission Shelter aligns to the building code and is aesthetically pleasing. And I'd like to speak to that if I may.
Go ahead. Moved by
Thank you very
Councillor
much.
Neilson.
I made some notes here so I don't come across as a bumbling fool or less. When we as council first passed the development permit, we did so based on a number of assumptions. The first assumption that it was going to save RCMP time. And the second assumption, it was going to save hospital time and resources. As a council, we have heard from the RCMP that it has indeed saved them time and resources, as they've seen fewer people in cells, as they were able to deliver those folks to Hope Mission or to the hospital rather than having them in cells. The second assumption of saving hospital time and resources has been refuted, as we have all heard lately. When you couple that information with other facts, and the other facts would be Leduc and Ponoka both shut down their emergency shelters. We had a report back from administration that there's no evidence of emergency shelters in central Alberta besides Red Deer and Edmonton. And recently at the recent RCMP Town Hall, Inspector Spans indicated the majority of homeless population are from our area. But he did go on to say that that is based on information that those people share with the RCMP, and it isn't verified in any other way at this time. In Council's strategic plan, we had 4 goals. 2 goals I'm going to speak to today. One is economy. With one of the measures of success in this goal being a tax strategy is in place that recognizes competitiveness, value in service delivery, and investment into, quote, the quality of place. And I think one of the concerns that we've heard is whether we have quality of place currently in our community with the social disorder that's going on. Goal number 2 speaks to safety. And the goal says, working together, we will ensure the sustained safety, security, and inclusivity of our city and its communities. And while I know, and I've heard from a number of folks in our community who say, I feel perfectly safe in this community. And I have to say, I'm one of those people. We've also heard from people who say, I don't feel safe in my community. And I think we need to pay attention to their concerns as well. And then lastly, the Government of Alberta has indicated they're establishing the Canadian Centre of Recovery Excellence, which will be designed to evaluate programs and make recommendations for improvement. And I think my interpretation of that, while it could be challenged, is that there's obviously concern at the government level that what is currently happening as it's dealing with vulnerable and or homeless individuals isn't working, or isn't working as well as the government feels that it could or should be working. And that's why I bring this motion forward at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Billingsley.
Thank you. Through the chair, Mr. Council, I want to make this very clear, or have a clear understanding. If this motion passes, then we are revoking the building permit. Is that correct?
That would be my understanding.
Go ahead, Sue.
Through the chair to Councillor Billingsley, the development permit.
The development permit,
Correct.
sorry, thank you. Which, may I follow up?
Yep.
Which, couple months ago, you advised us of the legal jeopardy. So I think that should be very clear to all of us sitting here of what that puts us into and where the risks involved in if this passes. So I think it's very important, and it's very clear.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just need clarification. So we're talking about the development permit, but this whole thing is about fencing. So are we talking about fencing, or are we talking about the whole development permit? I guess this is through to administration. We approve to ensure that the fencing for Hope Mission shelter aligns with the building code and is aesthetically pleasing. That's what the motion is. No?
My interpretation, sorry.
Go ahead, Sue.
Through the chair to Councillor Elliott, I believe that when the motion was made, that there was like an amendment to the original, so we had approval of the development permit, and then there was additional commentary put in on that condition. That's why it speaks to it right in the motion. We could have just added a different...
Okay, so when this is rescinded, then we would go back to the original approval of the development permit?
I don't think so. Emily, do you? Yeah, please. We'll just get Emily to come up
Okay,
and speak.
I'm sorry, I just need clarification. And I maybe should have sent this ahead, but I thought it was kind of clear, but...
I just want to check it. Oh, it is on. Wonderful. My apologies. Through the chair to Councillor Elliott, my understanding is when the development permit was initially approved back in May, that there was that amendment made to specifically note the fencing, but the only motion that was actually approved to approve the development permit contained that wording regarding the fencing. So if this one were to be rescinded, there would not be another motion that we could fall back on that was approved by council,
Okay,
if that makes sense.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep. Councillor Neilson.
Through the chair to administration. So again, I would need some counsel here in the sense that if this motion were to pass, then the steps of the city would be to establish a stop work order then, if the development permit is rescinded.
Through the chair to Councillor Neilson, that would be my understanding, but before I give a definitive answer on that, I would like to review the steps in the land use bylaw just to make sure that, because there's a couple of different mechanisms that could be followed.
Anything further? Yeah, Councillor Blatz.
Thank you. So it's not shocking at all that I'm going to be speaking against the motion. When we're talking about Hope Mission and everything that has transpired over the past year, I have seen how this has torn our community apart and has divided everybody. And when we're speaking about community safety, I think that we need to also remember that we're speaking about the safety of the people that use this shelter, and how if there is no shelter in place, then that means that that these people have nowhere else to go. During the winter, we'll have to start scrambling for an emergency shelter yet again. If the trailers that are there remain in place, then there is no place for there to be any sort of programming or advancing any services that they could provide, such as nursing care, mental health care, all of that. I have been to the shelter and I have seen the lack of space that they have currently, and there is no way for you to put anything else in there. And so for me, When we're talking about human rights, when we're talking about safety, when we're talking about community members, these people are also important in our community, and taking care of them is something that I don't think is optional. And so for me, I could not support this motion because it goes against community safety and well-being, and it also continues to divide our community even further. So thank you.
Anything further? Go ahead, Councillor Aberley.
Thank you. I'm going to make this very quick. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I too feel that a permanent shelter that has the space and the opportunity to separate men from women, to have counseling rooms, to have a space where they are able to do more than they can with the MAP program, which is in a large sense what Hope Mission is right now, is providing safety and is for our entire community. And I appreciate that people do not feel safe. I am very concerned that every time we speak to a ministry or to another organization, they continue to tell us that shelters are necessary. We are literally a step ahead of communities around us, providing safety for our entire community. This decision is not based on me thinking that I am looking after one portion. I really do think that this is an answer to looking after our entire community, and that we need to really take a moment to look at everything that has transpired over the last 5-6 years and the decisions that led us to this year ago. Thank you.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I agree with what Councillor Blatz was saying, but we are becoming a hub with the fact that Leduc, Camrose, Ponoka are not offering shelters anymore. We are a hub for persons with developmental disabilities, but the resources are provided for all of those people who need their services. The services required here, basically all that's happening is we're enabling people to have a place to sleep and have a meal and then wander our community for the rest of the day. And I know if we had a bigger facility, there would be programming, but something could be done during the day right now. We have, at the last council meeting, we had a group come in that is going to provide some counseling and try to assist people who are having some mental or addiction challenges. But I just see the fact that we are now becoming a hub, and yes, it's been secondhand, but we have heard from different sources that there are people from Manitoba and Saskatchewan coming to Wetaskiwin now. And one person was asked, "Why are you in Wetaskiwin?" And the individual said, "Because it's the place to party." So I'm having a challenge with this, and I am torn, but if we're going to become the hub, we are too small to be able to do that. Thank you.
Councillor Blatz.
Thank you. My statements are in response to Councillor Elliott's. We can't say that we are becoming the hub of anything, considering that at the RCMP town hall, they said that that is not the case, and that the people that were using the Leduc shelter had all went to Edmonton. So I do want to make that clear. But on the other side of this, we are capped at the number of beds that are allowed by fire code in those buildings. And so we can't become the hub of anything if we are capped at 45 or 50 beds. And so that is something that I really need to drive home, is the fact that we've had that many homeless people. In fact, we've had that many homeless people for a long time. And so this isn't anything new. We've had more people than that have all been from Wetaskiwin. The problem is that if we don't have a shelter It's not that these people just magically go away or they go back to whatever community they're from. These people die. And so I just want to make it clear that without a shelter, it's not increasing the aesthetically pleasing look of our community or even increasing safety, because at that point we have people that are in tents, we have people that are in unsafe structures, we have people that are stuck without any medical care, any mental health care, any sort of care at all, and so these people just end up dying. And that is not something that I can stomach. And another portion of this is that when we were talking about legal ramifications, we were told before that there is risk that if we stop the development permit that Hope Mission could sue us and get the go after us for the money that was already spent, and I don't think that that is a good use of taxpayer dollars, especially when that includes legal fees. And so that is what I am going to say to that.
Anything further? Ready for the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Neilson.
Through the chair then to administration, given that this motion was passed, what would be the city's next steps? Do we know what our next steps are?
Through the chair to Councillor Neilson, we will work with planning and development to go through and figure out what the process is and be in contact with Hope Mission. And then we will report back at the next council meeting if there are any other steps that need to be taken.
Thank you very much.
Item 9.1, Council Procedural Bylaw Update.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Sorry, I'm just flipping to that section. We have brought forward this RFD. I understand that it came to the organizational meeting in 2023. However, I was not present at that meeting and it never did get approved. There were some changes in there that that council was seeking, and then of course based on the first quarter of this year, we've had some issues with the open microphone, so we have put in some proposed changes for council to consider. The attached bylaw is there and it is redlined. However, I've copied the majority of the changes or the major changes into the RFD for easy reference. The remainder of the changes are just grammatical or cleaning up the bylaw. So the first change that we would ask council to consider is making some changes to the open microphone. There's been some feedback internally and then discussions with council about how to make that open microphone more efficient and more respectful. I have looked at other communities and what they've been doing. They've had similar issues as our community, and so a lot of them have adopted these criteria that are noted in here. Basically, it's just putting more rigor around the responsibility of the person that's presenting in the open mic. There's discussion about getting them to sign an agreement before they come in, that they know they're going to be respectful, they're not going to address items that are on the current agenda, and really just follow the rules of open mic. One of the other suggestions that came through from administration was to treat open mics similar to presentations from delegations during council meetings, in which they need to submit everything ahead of time so that we're aware of what's being presented, and we can work with the presenter to let them know whether or not they can speak on that topic at that meeting. There's also an option to remove open mic, although we know council added this for a reason, so I just wanted to highlight that, although I don't think it's a desirable option for council. The next change that we had was to section 8.1E, business arising out of minutes. We wanted to take a look at the formal information request process and treat it the same as the correspondence with administration. So making sure that it follows, any administrative inquiries, that it follows the same process. So we currently take formal information requests via email. It could be verbal, it could be at a council meeting, and through a motion. And we have a process set up to respond to them in kind with timelines around it. But we just want to put more rigor around how the formal information requests are received. And I think the connection to administrative inquiries gives us the opportunity when an FIR comes in to say, before council votes on whether or not they want the information, you can find out how long it's going to take us to get the information for you. So sometimes FIRs are quite simple and we can get the answer quickly, and other times it could take weeks or months of gathering data and information. And council should know that ahead of making a decision on whether or not the FIR should be approved. And then the last part was closed session. So this was a recommendation from Councillor Neilson last year. We just want to add in when items discussed in closed session are deemed public, that they will be brought forth to a regular council meeting as information so that we can update council and the public that what was discussed, make the connection to the closed session, and that it is now available publicly so that the people know what was discussed in closed session as much as possible. We are only asking for first reading. We plan to bring it back to the organizational meeting. However, if council wants it back sooner, we are open to that as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Blatz.
I move that the Committee of the Whole recommends the changes discussed in the meeting to City Council at the May 27th regular council meeting.
Moved by Councillor Blatz. Go ahead, Councillor Neilson.
Just through the chair to administration, I applaud the work that's been done on this particular document, and I think it's really important to note that there was an option to cease on open mic, but council feels strongly that it's important that citizens who want to express their concerns and frustrations are given an opportunity to do so. But it isn't a forum to grandstand in terms of taking shots at people and name calling. So I applaud the changes there. I'm glad we still have open mic if this is to pass, and thank you for the work done on it.
Councillor Billingsley.
Thank you. Through the chair to administration, again, dealing with open mic. Under the first bullet point,
Can you, sorry, give me a number with that as well?
that would be on the first page, open microphone, a person may register to request an opportunity to address council. Are they allowed to speak on something that is on the current agenda of that meeting?
Through the chair to Councillor Billingsley, the way that it's currently read, you are not to speak to anything that is on the current agenda.
And what would be the reasoning for that?
It's pretty standard across the municipalities, but you don't want open mic to be hijacked to speak to council. So the public, there are rules around how the public can engage with council. There are delegations, there are public hearings, and that is how the community speaks to council. If you allow open mic to speak to an item that's on the agenda, it gives them another avenue that is unofficial to actually speak to council and air their opinions on something like this. So it's circumventing the governance process and how you communicate with council. They can send letters, they can meet with councillors. There's a number of other avenues that the public can tell council how they feel about something. It shouldn't be through an open mic process.
And so it'd be more, if they did want to speak, that they could do what Mr. Gardner did this morning.
Correct.
Thank you.
Anything further? We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. 9.2, 2023 quarterly operating capital projects update.
Okay, that's me again. So we have decided to pull this and our corporate business plan out of consent agenda just so that we can have a deeper discussion with council about where we sit with the previously approved projects. This is the last quarter of 2023, so it does not have any of the 2024 approved projects that are in there. It will be the next report that comes to council. So the first section is 2023 operating projects, and you can look through the few pages of there. There were 17 approved operating projects, and of those 14 have been complete. The 3 that are ongoing are on page 3 of 6. Just a quick update on these. So Virtual City Hall was one of them. We have that one on hold. We are trying to determine the best process for this and then bring it back as part of the 2025 budget deliberations. The server replacement and disaster recovery was off track. It was delayed and supposed to be completed last year, but we were having hardware issues with availability, and so we anticipate it will be completed within the next month. And then the last one was the records management file structure. So we did, at the end of last year, have a bylaw approved, and the funds for the analysis were approved, and we're going through that, and so we should have information coming forward through administration in the next little while, and then we will continue on with that project. So I do anticipate those will be done this year, those final 3. The next section, starting on page 4 of that document, is the capital projects for 2023. Of the 16 that were approved, 10 of them have been completed already, and I'll just go through the ones that have not been completed yet. There are 5 that are on the not completed area. Most of them are on track to be completed this year, hopefully prior to us starting into the 2024 approved capital projects, but some of them may drag on. There is one that has been put on hold, although it was approved and it needs to be done. The storm lift station that was approved out in the West End, we have delayed, again, trying to work with the county through the ICF process to make, to see if there is the opportunity to help with the county being accountable for a lot of the stormwater that's coming into our municipality. So we have received the report that was done on the regional storm, and we'll be reviewing that in the next little while, and then we'll be dealing with our ICF board to be speaking to the county about that. So I hope in 2025 we're back on track with storm projects, but I have asked staff to delay anything to do with storm until we can figure out the funding with the county. So that's my highlight on this. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Billingsley.
I move that City Council accepts the 2023 quarterly operating and capital project report as information.
Moved by Councillor Billingsley. Go ahead.
Just a quick comment to administration. Very clear and concise. Thank you very much.
Agreed. Anything further? We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Item 9.3, Corporate Business Plan 2023 Quarter 4 Update.
Thank you, Council. The leadership team is currently reviewing the information that was brought out of the recent Council Strategic Planning Retreat, and we'll be updating this document for Council's approval later this summer. I will go through quickly. So the second page of the document shows all of the completed corporate business plan initiatives that have been done already. And then on page 3 of the document, we talk about the current initiatives. So the first one is the update long-term statutory planning document. So we've got the MDP being completed this year. I will remind Council that your survey will be due at the end of this month, so that planning and development can then incorporate it into the public portion of that. And then once the MDP is approved, planning and development will be moving on to the land use bylaw that was also approved as part of budget 2024. We are on track and will be quite a long process as for the transition from Unisite and Esri. The develop a tax strategy, I had previously sent an update to council. We are off track on this one, and the CFO and myself are looking at what we can do to potentially move this along with another firm. Exploring the energy program and grant opportunities. So we are on track with this with the SEEP program. And I did want to make mention that with the recent donation from MOD that we will be rolling out or have rolled out the residential solar grant program for our community as well. So we'll start to put more public information out about that so that we can start to get applications. So that one is, it'll be ongoing after this year. We'll move it to complete. We have temporarily put on hold establishing internal process and procedures due to staff turnover. And then we have reviewed and updated our customer service process and procedures. We do have some work that's still being completed, such as a phone tree. When people phone in, a lot of times they either get a voicemail or it would ring busy, and so we're looking to try and streamline that a little bit, and they can press numbers. I know not everybody likes to press numbers, but they're going to be directed to the right department a lot quicker, so we're still hoping to implement that this year, and we should have that project completed by the fall of 2024. The rest of the initiatives that have not been started yet will be reconsidered, so when administration meets to go over council's current retreat results, we will look at how some of this stuff fits in, and then we will be bringing the revised document back to you hopefully very soon. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that City Council accepts the corporate business plan quarterly update as information.
Moved by Councillor Elliott. Any discussion? We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. 9.4, affordable housing needs assessment requirements.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, members of council. The purpose of this presentation is to respond to council's direction in motion 143/24 to outline the requirements for preparing an affordable housing needs assessment that meets provincial requirements and to set out a potential approach to completing one for the city of Wetaskiwin. Housing needs assessments are valuable in informing municipal action plans related to housing and in supporting applications for external funding and financing programs, including from the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, better known as CMHC. Having one ready increases the city's ability to respond when funding opportunities are released. The province's Affordable Housing Needs Assessment Guidebook outlines the information required to complete a needs assessment and provides a standardized template. Much of the requested information is pre-populated in the province's online submission tool and is drawn from census data and CMHC housing market data. This data can be supplemented by reviews of city records and consultation among city staff and with local housing and human services providers. The template also requests information on municipal housing policies and key initiatives, which can be completed based on existing policies and amended based on any future policy changes. The template asks for information on any community consultations undertaken with organizations serving priority populations. High-level consultations identifying housing issues have already taken place through the community safety and well-being strategy. Administration recommends that for a housing needs assessment, this info be supplemented with more specific and focused consultations on this topic with affected organizations and community members. Finally, based on the information gathered, the template requests estimates of the current and projected unit deficit for various housing types, including but not limited to community housing, seniors housing, and permanent supportive housing. It also requests that the municipality identify the top 3 priority housing types indicated by the data in the report. Administration can prepare this type of assessment in-house. The most significant input is the staff and community participant time that's needed to plan and undertake an appropriate engagement program and to draft the report. There are several significant policy development commitments already on the books, notably including the completion of the municipal development plan update and the kickoff of the land use bylaw update. Therefore, we estimate that if we were directed to prepare and prioritize an affordable housing needs assessment, administration could bring a draft to Committee of the Whole for information at the end of the 2024 calendar year, at the earliest, and then to Council for municipal endorsement and submission shortly after that. And with that summary, I'd be happy to take any questions that you have.
Councillor Neilson.
Thank you. I move the council accepts the report regarding the requirements for completing an affordable housing needs assessment as information.
Moved by Councillor Neilson. Any discussion? Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Emily. Emily, are there any grants available to help us with this?
Through the chair to Councillor Elliott, I would have to look into that and advise.
Okay, because it might help us if there was some money available for that. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Neilson.
Thank you, through the chair to Emily. I am assuming, but perhaps incorrectly, that Councillor Bronco and I sit on Wetaskiwin Area Lodge Authority, which is run by Bethany Group. And the Bethany Group out of Camrose has a number of investments in affordable housing within the community, so they would be a good source as part of that conversation with community resources.
Through the chair to Councillor Neilson, that's correct. That's the type of organization that we would be considering in assembling an advisory committee to chat about this.
Councillor Bronco. Make sure your mic's on and you're speaking into it, please.
Was it on? Just a simple question. When we're talking about affordable housing, would that mean that it would be the city to donate the land for affordable housing, or is that a grant or something that would be given to contractors or developers to do that? Is that, because, I don't know, maybe I have some conflict that if we're doing affordable housing in our community, is it based on city public land or is it a developer?
Through the chair to Councillor Bronco, not necessarily is the short answer. When CMHC talks about affordable housing and housing affordability, they talk about it on a full spectrum, all the way from emergency shelter through to ownership housing. And when they're talking about affordability, they mean housing that doesn't cost any more than about 30% of a household's income, and that can happen in a lot of different ways. And again, development can also happen in a lot of different ways, depending on the financing. So it need not necessarily involve city land or direct financial city investment.
Thank you for your information. Thank you.
Anything further? We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. 10.1, development permit application for plan 0320745, block 1, lot 7, within a direct control environment management DCEM district.
Good morning once again.
Is that my land or? Yes. Thank you.
The purpose of today's presentation is for Council to make a decision on the direct control environmental management development permit application initially presented for information at the April 22nd Committee of the Whole meeting. The subject property is on 64th Street, south of 56th Avenue. Since it was first transferred to the current owner in 2003, it has been gradually developed as outdoor storage for the pre-existing concrete business based on the adjacent residential mixed-use property. And it has since also been rezoned to direct control environmental management. Adjacent property owners have raised concerns regarding the impact of fill placement on drainage in the area, regarding noise and truck traffic associated with the business. The current development permit application is intended to address the compliance of the existing development, which is a change of use from open space to industrial storage. It's not intended to address any proposed new development on the site. That would require a new development permit application if it were to be proposed. As summarized in the RFD and at the April 22nd meeting, The key issues on this site relate to drainage, potential contamination, and industrial impacts to nearby properties. To address these issues, administration is recommending conditions including that the owner first work with the city to identify an appropriate utility right-of-way along the east and north sides of the property. Second, complete a Phase 2 environmental site assessment as part of any future development that may disturb soil or groundwater or change the use of the property. Third, adhere to the industrial performance standards that would normally apply in industrial zones, including the requirement that there be no offensive noise, smoke, dust, etc., beyond the site boundary, and that storage shall be screened from view. And finally, not to be permitted to expand the existing outdoor storage area towards residential properties to the north. The full draft development permit with recommended conditions is attached as attachment 5, with a table listing the rationale for each condition in attachment 6. Additionally, you heard from an adjacent property owner during the delegation portion of this meeting, as our land use bylaw does not provide for a formal public hearing for direct control districts. I recognize that there's a range of information to consider, and so I'd be happy to respond to any questions.
Mr. Mayor, I would, oops, just a sec. I move that City Council approve the development permit for Plan 0320745, Block 1, Lot 7, as presented.
Moved by Councillor Elliott. Any discussion? Councillor Blatz.
Thank you. Through the chair to Emily, is there currently a stop work order on this plan?
Through the chair to Councillor Blatz, stop work order was issued. I don't have the date on me at this time, but there is one in place for the property.
Thank you. And what happens if we don't approve this development permit?
Through the chair to Councillor Blatz, the city would take steps to continue with enforcement as set out in our land use bylaw.
All right, thank you very much.
Councillor Neilson.
Just a number of questions here, I guess. In reading the information, there is a condition relative to maintaining and ensuring appropriate drainage, which could necessitate excavation, I suspect, at some point along the line. And I also understand that if there's any disturbance of soil, then there needs to be a test to ensure that contamination from other sites aren't creating impact. So in the event that there needs to be excavation to maintain the drainage, and in the event that any testing would identify potential contaminants, what would need to happen there? Would the landowner have to get rid of all the contaminants or do remediation on the property, or because some of that contamination appears or may appear to be from sources outside of that property? So where does the responsibility begin and end if there needs to be soil disturbance?
Through the chair to Councillor Neilson, the most recent information that I have on this topic indicates that the source of the contamination is generally responsible for cleaning, and so in the event that there was excavation required, generally excavation on private property requires a development permit, so we'd have the opportunity as planning and development to be involved in the process that way. If contamination was discovered, we would likely need more information on the source of the contamination to identify the next steps and the level of responsibility.
Okay, thank you. And my next question through, I guess relates to, I'm assuming that the drainage, ensuring the drainage is appropriate is in relation to the residential property to the south. Does administration feel any concern about that drainage across his property into by the Lake Park?
Through the chair to Councillor Neilson, can you elaborate on the nature of the concern?
I'm not sure I can. We've had concerns expressed by the residents to the south, and the city has responded by engaging in a number of mitigating solutions for drainage. And given that that work has been completed, do we have any further concerns that that's going to exacerbate a problem on this particular property?
Through the chair to Councillor Neilson, so I'm understanding from your elaboration that we're talking about actual water drainage and flooding rather than contamination.
Sure.
And what's in it at this point. That's good. To my knowledge, and I will allow Sue and Kathy to chime in once I've answered to indicate if there's anything that I may have missed. To my knowledge, that there's not concern on this particular property regarding drainage. The need is to make sure that the drainage is flowing through the property properly. And so that is where the need for an easement is coming from, to ensure that the city has the ability to enter the drainage ditch on the east and north sides of the property to make sure that if there is any kind of drainage issue, that water can flow through.
Thank you. And early in the document, it talked about provisions for fill to be brought in. So if fill is being brought into the property, so soil is not disturbed on the property, is there any concern in that regard?
Through the chair to Councillor Neilson, generally grading and changing of the grade on a property does require a development permit. So from the point of view of permitting, there would be a permit requirement. However, from the point of view of contaminant disturbance, it appears less likely.
Okay, and my last question, is the requirement to have a landscape plan, again, to mitigate noise, visual impacts, and so forth on the north boundary. And it has to come to the city for approval. So do we have a set of standards about what that would consist of? So when we heard the delegation this morning, there was concern about necessary heights or density of some kind of barrier, if you will. Do we have expectations currently in place, or do we look at it from the perspective of what's there and what we would recommend?
Through the chair to Councillor Neilson, we do have a section in the land use bylaw that sets out general requirements for landscaping when planning and development evaluates landscape plans. There are some requirements regarding densities of trees and shrubs, some guidance on the types, some limited guidance on what the objectives of the landscaping is in terms of kind of screening and aesthetics and so on. With that said, if council felt the need to set out specific objectives of this screening, of this landscaping, recognizing that there may be an additional screening requirement in this case, council would have the jurisdiction to do that.
I guess the reason for the question, Emily, was that like it's one thing to have a landscape plan, as was mentioned in the delegation, to plant, 1-foot trees versus bringing in 10-foot trees. So is that, and I think the word that the speaker was talking about is a landscape plan that takes 50 years to develop. So is that taken into consideration when you're looking at the landscape plan?
Through the chair to Councillor Neilson, it can be. The difficulty sometimes arises in the practicalities of planting larger trees. And so if there was a need to have more screening earlier on in a landscape plan, then that's something that council could provide direction on in directing administration on evaluating it.
Great, thank you very much.
If that helps.
Thank you.
Councillor Billingsley?
Thank you. Through the chair to Emily, you responded that there is currently a stop work order on that property. Is that for the entire business or a portion of what they conduct as business?
Through the chair to Councillor Billingsley, that's for the development that had taken place without a permit, so relating to the outdoor storage on that property.
So it's the outdoor storage, it's not necessarily conducting grinding of concrete or anything like that that is being done?
I would have to check the wording regarding the specific grinding of concrete, but it's related to the development on that property. It's not related to the business that is based on the adjacent one, so activities on that property.
And under the table of the rationale for conditions, it is the property owner that would be responsible for all costs incurred of fulfilling those conditions?
Through the chair to Councillor Billingsley, that's right.
Thank you.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Emily. On the rationale for conditions on page 7 of 8, there's a couple of things that relate to industrial performance and industrial activities. Does that limit the hours, and do they have to be consistent with the other hours that we have for people who are doing work within the city?
Through the chair to Councillor Elliott, generally the requirement is for compliance with the what I would call the noise bylaw, but I think it's covered under our community standards bylaw.
Okay. And just secondly, if this were approved, who's going to enforce all of this to make sure all conditions are adhered to?
Through the chair to Councillor Elliott, it falls under the responsibility of a number of departments depending on the violation. If it's related to the land use bylaw, then it would be planning and development enforcing. If it's related to specific noise complaints, we may call for support from our enforcement services, but depending on what has specifically been the violation, we follow up accordingly.
Okay. And the landscaping has to be aesthetically pleasing? And the reason I ask that, could you just build a concrete wall around the property and make it look like a fort?
Through the chair to Councillor Elliott, I would probably need to look for very specific requirements in the land use bylaw, but concrete walls of that height generally don't constitute landscaping. We're looking more at sort of shrubbery and trees and living things. With that said, if there is a requirement for noise screening, we can look at different ways to do that as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Councillor Billings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I guess to Emily or administration, Mr. Gardner had some concerns this morning about what exactly the fencing or to minimize the curb appeal, I guess. The answer that you gave to us, I'm not totally comfortable exactly what that would look like. And so I guess my question then would be to administration, if we say yes to this and this goes through, do we have recourse to be able to go back and say, well, what we really want are 20-foot trees, what we really want is a 6-foot concrete wall, whatever that is. Is that possible to go back to revisit, or this is it? Or what's already there in the bylaw? That makes sense.
I can answer that one, Emily. So similar to the discussion earlier, it is a direct control property. So once you approve it, it falls under the MGA. My suggestion is if council would like to see that landscape plan before they decide to approve this, that we defer the approval and bring that information back for council before you do approve this.
That's... Can I make motion to table this?
Yes, you can, actually. That's not up for debate.
Then can or I guess that's the end
No.
of the discussion. That's
End of
great.
discussion.
Then I'll withdraw that. It just be... Administration, how can I give direction, make a motion to give direction?
Can you speak in your mic, please?
Thank you.
Yep.
Administration, how can I give direction to bring something back without...
Table this and have a subsequent motion.
Okay, then I'm going to put the table back
On the table?
on the table.
Those in favor? Opposed? Sorry, was that in favor or opposed?
I think it's opposed.
Okay, carried. Councillor Billingsley.
Thank you. I would like to make a motion to.
All right, point of order.
Thank
Do
you.
we need a date that it's coming back for the tabling motion? Okay, can you give me a date, Councillor Billingsley?
Well, that'll all depend on how quickly we can get more information as far as aesthetics of the property. Couple months, fine?
Emily, has a landscape plan been submitted yet?
No, it has not, and so we would need to take into account the time that would likely take.
June
So I think
24th meeting, is that okay? Second meeting in June?
it's possible that
Yeah.
that's a bit soon.
Okay, what's the July meeting?
Is it July 20th? 26th?
No.
July 22nd. No, we only had one that
Either
in
the
July.
15th or the 22nd.
22nd?
July 22nd, okay. So tabled until July 22nd. Those in favor?
Mayor, just very quickly though, Emily said she would be rushed for the June meeting. We don't know when her vacation time is and things, and maybe we should clarify with her to make sure that it can be done by then.
That was my question to administration and confirming that July 22nd was okay.
Yes, I know, but I was watching Emily's face, so I
Yeah.
didn't know.
Through the chair, July 22nd should be okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank
Councillor
you, Mr. Mayor.
Billingsley.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion. I move that City Council directs administration to bring back options on, would be a good word to describe what we want to do. here.
Landscaping?
Landscaping on landscaping plan for Plan 0320745, Block 1, Lot 7. By July 22nd.
We'll just wait till that comes up on the screen and then we'll open it up for discussion. Fir trees in there too. Moved by Councillor Billingsley. Any discussion? We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Carried. We are going to take a 13-minute break. Back at 11:11. All right, we're back at 11:11. Request for change in funding source for Airfield lighted signs, approved capital project. Welcome, Matthew.
Well, it's still morning. Good morning, Mayor and Council. Purpose for me here today is to request the change in funding source for the approved capital project of the Airfield lighted signs. We did not receive any information or dollars back from the STIP grant, so we'd like to change it to the Canada Community Building Fund CCBF grant in the amount of $52,164.
Councillor Billingsley.
Thank you. I move that City Council approve the change in funding source for the Airfield lighted sign project from the Strategic Transportation Infrastructure Program grant to the Canada Community Building Fund grant up to $52,164.
Moved by Councillor Billingsley. Any discussion? Councillor Aberley. She said Karen, so I was like,
Thank
Karen.
you. Yeah. Thank you, Mayor Gandam, through the chair to Matthew, or to anybody, administration. Would this affect any other projects that we have coming through that funding stream?
Through the chair to Councillor, I believe no.
Thank you.
Anything further? Matthew, did you push to have our skydiving trip canceled?
I did not. I actually tried to get it. Reappeared. That was like 9 o'clock on the morning. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
All right. Ready for the question? Those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. SCBA funding request. Welcome.
All right. Yeah, good morning, Mayor Gandam and members of council. So the purpose of my presentation this morning is to receive funding approval for 2 self-contained breathing apparatuses for use at the Manluck Centre. So as you may know, chlorine gas is used at the Manluck Centre to maintain proper pool chemistry to adhere to AHS standards. Currently, staff are required to change the chlorine bottles approximately 2 to 3 times a month, and this is dependent on bather loads. So as per our safe work procedure, 2 staff are needed to complete the bottle changes. So wearing a full face respirator, 1 staff member enters the chlorine room and the other remains outside as a spotter. So although using a full face respirator for working around chlorine gas meets the current Alberta Health and Safety Code, it is not best practice. Other provinces require a self-contained breathing apparatus, referred to as an SCBA, in order to work around chlorine gas. So an SCBA is a device worn to provide breathable air in environments with oxygen deficiency, smoke, or dangerous gases. Furthermore, most other aquatic facilities, including City of Leduc, City of Camrose, City of Edmonton, and City of Calgary pools, do provide an SCBA for staff working around chlorine gas. So there's a chart there that summarizes the health effects of chlorine gas, and in large quantities, it can be fatal. So recently, we have had our staff who complete the chlorine bottle changes express concerns regarding their safety with doing the bottle changes without an SCBA. And of course, under the Occupational Health and Safety Code, workers do have the right to refuse work they feel unsafe doing. And in order to help minimize these concerns and ensure the safety of all of our city staff, administration is seeking approval from council to purchase 2 SCBA units. So administration has also looked into alternatives for the chlorine bottle changes, like having a third party come in and do those changes for us. But we were not successful in finding a vendor who would be able to complete the bottle changes when we need them. So that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to take any questions that you guys might have.
Councillor Neilson.
I move that City Council approves up to $10,500 for the purchase of 2 SCBA units to be funded from the contingency reserve.
Moved by Councillor Neilson. Any discussion? Councillor Billingsley.
Thank you. Through the chair to administration. This was dangerous 8 months ago, 2 years ago. Why was this not a capital charter brought to us at budget time, and now why is it deemed I won't say an emergency, but why now and not at budget time?
Through the chair to Councillor Billingsley, because the full face respirators meet the health and safety code, yeah, we've been completing the bottle changes safely, but again, it's not best practice, and we do have staff with concerns now. But yeah, maybe it should have been.
And to follow up with that then, is there other things, activities that go on at the facility that are also, I won't say compliant, but non-compliant as far as safety? This would be the last of something like this. Okay, and lastly, do these units, are they certified or something to that effect that they expire, that they have to be replaced over time? Is this something that has to be added to the budget ongoing as far as either repair or replacement of so said apparatus?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Billingsley, for sure they need to be repaired and then replaced. So we would be adding it, if it's approved today, we would be adding this item to the rec budget going forward.
Thank you.
Councillor Bronco.
Thank you, Tyler. My colleague answered a question on the certification of the mass containers. Thank you.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Natasha. Natasha, are two enough, or would you need an extra one on standby, like in case something happened and a person was going in? I'm just wondering if that's enough.
Through the chair to Councillor Elliott, we do feel it's sufficient, so the actual tanks can be changed person to person, but we would have 4 staff that would have masks fitted that can be interchanged with the tanks. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anything further? We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lease policy agreement template.
Good morning, Mayor Gandam and members of City Council. I'm here to present this morning on the revised lease template, which has in particular has a calculation for what we would reimburse a leaseholder if we were to break the lease with them. So the attached template has been updated to reflect the amendments suggested by Council, as well as other contributions from city departments, specifically that structural improvements are more likely to be more expensive, as well as have a longer lasting than wallpaper or paint. So that was taken into consideration with the calculation. The calculation is the eligible reimbursement is equal to the net book value times the lesser of either A, the remaining use of the asset, or the remaining lease term. And within the report, there is an example, and if there are any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Councillor Billingsley.
I move that City Council approves the lease policy agreement template as presented.
Moved by Councillor Billingsley. Any discussion? We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Local improvement tax for tax roll 391710.
Good morning, Council. At the April 26, 2021 regular Council meeting, Local Improvement Tax Bylaw 1989-21 was approved. This bylaw set out a local improvement tax for the road reconstruction on 62nd Street from 47 to 49 Avenues and on 49 Avenue from 62nd Street to Evergreen Close, and also to include Evergreen Close. So construction did commence in 2021, and the deficiencies were completed in 2023. The tax has since been applied to all affected properties for the 2024 tax year. The property owner of Plan 022-0985, Block 2, Lot 7, are disputing the tax being levied and are requesting to be considered as any other residential property on this street. Our current local improvement policy, CO-035, was approved in 2018, and it states that if a local improvement is requested, by the property owners, and they have 2/3 of the benefiting property owners to support the request, which represents 50% of the assessed value of the identified properties, then all benefiting parties will be assessed for their portion of the costs required to pay for the improvements. There are 3 options for land that can be assessed for local improvement taxes within our policy. They are residential properties, special circumstance properties, and mixed land use properties. The lot being disputed is zoned direct control and is not considered a residential property. Therefore, it can fit under special circumstance or mixed land use. The method to calculate this assessment for these properties is on a per meter of frontage basis. The property has 214.42 meters of frontage with only 159.91 meters of new pavement and should have been assessed at that rate. The bylaw, which was approved again in 2021, was only approved at 138 meters of frontage for their property based on an approximate number of 6 residential lots at 23 meters each. The letter from administration to the property owner on July 14th, 2023 did have an error in the frontage, which I'm correcting now in this report to council. The total assessment should be an additional $37,450.94, not the $50,436.73 that was noted. Since the bylaw was already approved, administration did not want to request an amendment to the bylaw to increase the amount of frontage to the full amount of the 159.91 meters, so that $37,450.94 was added to the city's share of that local improvement. And the city administration is recommending just to maintain the local improvement tax for this parcel. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Councillor Neilson.
I move the City Council directs administration to maintain the current assessed local improvement tax for tax roll 391710 and apply it to the 2024 tax notice.
Moved by Councillor Neilson. Any discussion? Councillor Elliott.
Thank you. Through to Kathy. The letter of July 17th, 23 that you sent, the $5,000 tax increase, is that per year? Is that just for that one resident? Or is it for all the properties?
Through the chair to Councillor Elliott, sorry, could you please repeat the value?
It was the $5,000 per year tax increase, it says. I'm just asking if that was for each resident, and I did send this question ahead of time.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Elliott, that letter was drafted from the property owner to the city. So that there, I believe, was just an estimated value of what the approved bylaw was.
And that's per year?
Sorry, I was just rereading the letter here. So that $5,000 per year is their property taxes, not including the local improvement levy.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Bronco.
Mr. Mayor, through Kathy, we gave them a quote when they did the local improvements. Have we increased it more than what we gave them? Did you increase it more than what we gave them, or, because I believe some of them are complaining they got higher costs because the construction costs were higher or anticipated. So, but what I'm getting here is you're just keeping the same as what we quoted them. Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Bronco, yes. So when construction was all completed, there was additional costs for the road portion. So we did not have the utility portion as part of the local improvement levy. So those costs were paid for by the city through grants. And so the road portion was actually slightly more than the approved bylaw from 2021. So we're asking just to maintain the current bylaw and that we would pay the remaining funds through the grant.
Okay, so what I'm trying to say is they're not getting a way big extra bill, what they thought they were gonna get.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Anything further? We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Okay, opposed? Sorry, Councillor Aberley, I couldn't see your hand on either side. In favor or opposed?
Yay.
Thank you.
In favor.
Item 10.6, 2025 budget schedule.
Good morning, Council. The 2025 budget schedule. The purpose of this is to provide Council with proposed dates for the 2025 budget deliberation. The dates being proposed by administration are as follows. September 9, 2024, to have budget presentations by outside agencies. This includes the RCMP, FCSS, and the Wetaskiwin Public Library. September 10th, to have capital budget presentation to Council. On September 10th, we're proposing to discuss the capital budget only. And then from October 28th to October 30th, to have budget deliberations, including fees and charges bylaw updates. The October 28th meeting, because that's a council meeting date, we're proposing to have in the afternoon, and then to continue the deliberations into the 29th of October and the 30th of October. Our hope as administration is to have the final budget approval from council on November 12th, 2024 for the 2025 budget year. Administration will begin public engagement for the budget process this year, starting at the May 25th, 2024 open house to be held very soon. At this time, we will ask residents for their input. We'll have a finance desk, and we will ask residents for their input into the 2025 budget process. We will ask residents what they would like to see in the budget and provide council with a summary of what's received from the public. We're also hoping to have 2 more engagement sessions that are to be scheduled in September. And one of the locations we're considering right now is the Manlocks. As administration this year is to go to the public as opposed to having them come to us. Some of the ideas we've kicked around is maybe a hockey game, a market day, but we haven't decided and we have not selected actual dates as yet. We will be presenting only those operating business cases and capital charters that reflect the work required to complete council's strategic goals as outlined in the corporate business plans. Administration would like to hear from council as well on initiatives that they would like to see presented during budget deliberations. Our request is that council submits this to administration by June 30th, 2024. This will allow us sufficient time to review the costs and impacts of those initiatives. Thank you. I will now take your questions.
Councillor Neilson.
I move the City Council approves the 2025 budget schedule as presented.
Moved by Councillor Neilson. Any discussion? We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Carried. Added agenda item 10.7, waste and recycling.
Good morning again, Council. So I just wanted to bring this forward today as just an update for our waste management program. Administration has received some calls from our residents with the new organics program starting, cart sizes, and looking at different schedules. And I just wanted to update Council to let you guys know that administration is looking at our service delivery options for waste management with respect to waste collection, organics collection, and then we're completing a rate review currently based on the new contracted services and looking at different service delivery options. So those will be coming forward to council at an upcoming meeting. This will include anything from cart sizes to collection days, bi-weekly versus weekly, those types of things. But I just wanted you to be aware that we have received those calls and we are looking into different options that we can present to council at a future date.
For a motion to accept as information?
Yes, please.
Councillor Neilson, any discussion? Go ahead.
No, I'll wait for the review to come back. Thank you.
Okay. We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Item 12.1, Fire Bylaw 2057-24.
Good morning, Council.
Good morning.
Mayor and Council. So the purpose of this RFD was to provide Council with an overview of the proposed Fire Bylaw 2057-24. The changes are required to the existing bylaw 2041-23 to make it enforceable, requesting consideration of all three readings at this meeting. So in the report, I've highlighted the changes, the requested changes. It requires amendments that are outlined for Council's consideration so that it can be enforceable. We've added the required definitions for enforcement officer, emergency vehicle, fire service property, Municipal Government Act, Provincial Offense Procedures Act, violation tag, violation ticket, and explosive based on a review and recommendations from enforcement services. Also in Schedule A, we've added the word open to the permit to clarify that the permit is for an open fire, not a fire pit. The document was reformatted to line up the sections with the penalties and fines. If the numbering did not line up with the sections in penalties and fines for Schedule B, enforcement officers would not be able to enforce it in the King's Bench Court due to administrative errors in bylaw. So administration has provided the proposed new Fire Bylaw 2057-24 incorporating the changes above as attachment A to this report. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Whoops. Mr. Mayor, I would move that City Council, I would move that City Council give first reading to the, where are you, Bill? I was right. I move that City Council lifts motion number 212-24, which reads, I move that City Council give first reading to the Fire Bylaw 2057-24.
Moved by Councillor Elliott. We're ready for the question. Those in
Sorry, I was just looking at this because in the minutes it was tabled. We need a motion to untable it first. Sorry, we missed that when we published.
I would move that we move motion.
Table.
No?
Is the wording incorrect on that, or just with, pardon? Oh, okay. Okay.
You want me to untable it?
Yes, please.
I'd move the City Council lifts motion number 212-24 from the table.
Moved by Councillor Elliott. Those in favor? Carried.
Okay, now I'll make the second motion. Council lifts motion number 212-24, which reads, I move City Council gives first reading to Fire Bylaw 2057-24.
Moved by Councillor Elliott. Any discussion? Ready for the question. Those in favor? Carried. We're just lifting it. Yep.
Okay, I'll get it on the next one.
I'll move that City Council give second reading to Fire Bylaw 2057-24.
Moved by Councillor Elliott. Councillor Neilson.
Sure, Chair to Fire Chief. So is there a permit required for a fire pit? And if so, it doesn't appear in any of the schedules.
Through the chair to Councillor Neilson, no, there is no longer a permit required for fire pits. That was the previous bylaw. That was the changes to the previous bylaw.
Right. And the reason I asked the question, because somewhere in here, it talked about you didn't need a permit if you were using a fire pit in a public park or a provincial park.
Correct.
So I was making an assumption that if you don't need it in a public park, that you may need it somewhere else. Thank you very much.
Anything further? Ready for the question? Those in favor? Carried.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move that City Council agrees unanimously to consider all three readings of Fire Bylaw 2057-24 at this meeting.
Moved by Councillor Elliott. Those in favor? Carried unanimously.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that City Council gives third and final reading to Fire Bylaw 2057-24.
Moved by Councillor Elliott. Any discussion? We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Item 12.2, 2024 Property Tax Bylaw.
Hello again, Council. The 2024 Property Tax Rate Bylaw 2601-24 has been prepared in accordance with the requirements of the Municipal Government Act. The proposed administration has maintained the non-residential to residential tax rate ratio of 2:1 for municipal taxes. The municipal tax estimated during the 2024 budget deliberations was $18,955,932 to cover municipal operations. The proposed tax rate reflects an increase of 1.54%, which is lower than the anticipated tax rate increase during budget deliberations of 5.53%. This is primarily due to an increase in assessment value. The average assessment increase is 3.2%, and this is largely due to inflation. The inflational increase is already incorporated now into the assessment value, hence why we do not require as large of a tax rate increase. The proposed tax rate increase when compared to prior year's tax rate is 1.54% to generate the dollars required to fund the 2024 budget. The proposed tax rate is 0.010720 or 10.7020% for residential properties and 0.02144040 for non-residential properties. The city also received the tax requisitions for the Alberta School Foundation Fund in the amount of $3.6 million and the separate school board in the amount of $348,966 and the Wetaskiwin and Area Lodge Authority in the amount of $296,302. The province also sent in the requisition for the designated industrial properties in the amount of $1,184. Administration is proposing a tax rate that reflects a 1.54% change compared to prior year. Thank you.
Just for clarification for our friends at home, the 1.54% includes the property tax requisitions by the Government of Alberta?
Through the chair to the mayor, no, it does not. This is just municipal taxes only. We do not have control over the requisitions received from the province.
Right. And again, a little piece of information. So when other municipalities see an increase to their assessment, and you see a tax increase, and the one I can think of offhand is the City of Edmonton has nearly a 10% tax increase for taxes this year, but that also is over and above the assessment increase that they've seen as a municipality as well. So when we have that assessment change, and we're able to lower our tax increase needs at 1.54% as opposed to the close to 6%, that is showing growth in the community and seeing our assessment average house value going up nearly 4% as well. Councillor Billingsley.
Thank you. I move that City Council gives first reading to the 2024 Tax Rate Bylaw 2061-24.
Moved by Councillor Billingsley. Go ahead.
So, is there, I just want to make this very clear, that we are indeed going with the 1.54 as opposed to the 5.53
That's what the motion is?
Exactly.
You can make an amendment.
No, no, that's fine. I just want to make that very clear, right?
Yes, absolutely. From what was proposed, once we were done our budget deliberations, to what we are approving today, if that's the approval by council, it's 1.54%.
And really, that's just, that percentage is a calculation based on the 0.107020, is where that number comes
The
from.
tax rate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to the administration. Edmonton was about $60 million short on taxes not received from the province for provincial buildings. Is that not correct? Mr. Mayor?
That was part of it, grants in place of taxes.
Okay, so we have the same, do we not?
Through the chair to Councillor Elliott, we do have grants in place of taxes. However, we were notified by the province years ago when they went first to the 75% reduction, then to the 50% reduction. And we've seen a transition, I think I was in council recently with a property where instead of the grant in place of taxes, it had moved to, I think it was the Catholic societies to pay the taxes. So we are in the same situation. We do not have grants in place of taxes that exceed of that amount. Our impact is quite negligible.
But we have a shortfall just as Edmonton does, only proportionate.
Through the chair to Councillor Elliott, I would not call it a shortfall because it's something that we knew and budgeted for, that we were not going to get the grant in place of taxes ahead. We were aware.
Yeah, no, I think Councillor Elliott's point is that we have provincially owned infrastructure in Wetaskiwin that we do not collect property taxes for.
Through the chair to Councillor Elliott, yes, we do, that we do not get the full grant in place of taxes for. We do get 50% of it.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying for me, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Anything further? Ready for the question? Those in favor? Carried.
I move that City Council give second reading to the 2024 tax rate bylaw 2061-24.
Moved by Councillor Billingsley. Any discussion? We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Carried.
I move that City Council give unanimous consent to third reading of the 2024 tax rate bylaw 2061-24.
Moved by Councillor Billingsley. Looking for unanimous consent. Those in favor? Carried unanimously.
I move that City Council gives third and final reading to the 2024 tax rate bylaw 2061-24.
Moved by Councillor Billingsley. Any discussion? We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. New business. Notice of motion. Banning of liquor sales.
Guess that's me. Give me 1 second. I just want to find some speaking notes here. Thank you. I think that it's very important that we have a little bit of discussion before I make my motion going forward. Mr. Chair, can you indulge me to let me speak to this before I make the motion?
Happy to oblige.
Thank you. I think it's very important that the public knows and council understands that this is not anything more than a fact-finding motion for administration to bring back to us so that we can make an informed decision. Whether it's legal, whether it's financial, and also social impacts of the information that is brought forward to us. So with that, we've heard loud and clear in our community that there are problems with the liquor stores in our community, and I'd like to be able to at least have a informed, or at least have some information to make a informed decision of which way to go with this. So having said that, I do realize that this is probably going to be very a hot topic over the next little bit. So With that in mind, I move that City Council directs administration to investigate the banning of liquor sales in the city of Wetaskiwin and bring back options by the June 24th, 2024 regular council meeting.
Moved by Councillor Billingsley. Any discussion? Councillor Neilson.
Thank you. Just through the chair to Councillor Billingsley, the banning of liquor sales. So, restaurant service?
My intention is that that would continue. So you could go into any establishment and consume liquor on site.
You're talking about off sales?
No, I'm talking about going into Barney's or Boston Pizza and having a beer. You would be able to do that.
He's talking about liquor stores, the sale of alcohol.
And
through
off sale. So in other words, I couldn't go into a hotel and buy a bottle of wine or a case of beer.
I just wanted to be clear that we're talking about off sales.
Yes, and I really want to make it clear, this motion is to get information. This is not banning anything at this point.
Understood. I just wanted to be clear that you're not talking about community becoming a dry community.
No.
Thank you.
Councillor Blatz.
I'd like to make an amendment then, because to me, when it says banning of liquor sales, that includes restaurants, so that would be any liquor sales. So to make it clear, if we could change it to banning of liquor store sales.
If I may, I think, if you added something to be for off-site consumption.
Sales for off-site consumption.
Yeah, that's better.
Okay.
Banning of liquor sales for off-site consumption. Is that your amendment? Okay. To the amendment, Councillor Bronco.
Thank you, Tyler. To my colleague, off sales, what about dial a bottle? The sale in
that would include that, because it's the sales for off-site consumption, as per the amendment.
Okay, so, but my concern is, he's not buying the booze here, you can go buy somewhere else and drive it into Wetaskiwin. So is it off sales from where? So.
You can't sell for the sake of off-site consumption. Anything further to the amendment? Sue?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to mention too that AGLC allows people to buy liquor permits for events, which could be considered off-site. So the wording off-site might not work. I think if you go back to investigate the banning of liquor sales through liquor stores and
off sales.
And off sales, and just limit it at that, then it wouldn't negate special events and other liquor permits that AGLC approves.
So we would need to defeat this amendment and have a new amendment. Okay. To the amendment. Those in favor? Opposed? Defeated. Would you like to make a new amendment?
Yeah, I'd like to make the amendment that Sue said.
Administration to investigate the banning of liquor sales through liquor stores and off sales. Why does off sales sound wrong? It's something else.
But again, we're not banning it, we're just sending on a fact. Does that give you enough direction?
It does.
Okay. To the amendment. We're ready for the...
Nope.
Nope.
Stop, hold on. You were right, because off sales is the wrong word, because off sales means that you can't sell alcoholic drinks from a bar either.
No, I honestly don't think that's true.
I'm wondering if, sorry, I'm wondering if the first motion, what was in there isn't, really gives direction, because we're not being very specific, because we're just sending administration to go get us information. And, right, we're not making any decisions, we're not doing anything, we're just go out into the world and find out what those, my legal, financial, and social consequences of so said action.
If we can do it.
Right? So does that fit into what was originally in the original motion?
I think go ahead. And then when we get the information back from administration, we can make the decision collectively. All right, so we're going to defeat an amendment.
Can I just take it back?
I don't know, can she take it back? Karen allows it.
I take it back.
Okay. Back to the original motion. Anything further? Looking forward to this report of information. Ready for the question. Those in favor?
Me, please. Me, please. Me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Aberley. Go ahead.
That's okay. All I wanted to do was ensure, because I know that Councillor Billingsley mentioned it, but was when we talk about social impacts, for me, I just wanted to make it clear that when I hear social impacts, I hear also banning of liquor and how, if there's any evidence for how it may increase recreational drug use. So if they have information of that, I just wanted to, does that make sense?
Sue, the social impact of...
Through the chair to Councillor Aberley, yes, I've made a note about this. I do think that a really deep dive into this is going to take a lot longer, but I think we can bring back in this timeline a high level, these are the things that were identified, here's how much time it will take, etc.
Yes, I appreciate that, Sue, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that that would be one of the sort of things that I'd be looking at.
Thank you.
At the high level.
Okay, thank you. We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Carried unanimously. Anything else from administration? We are adjourned at 11:54. Oh, wait, before we adjourn, maybe this is off, but just a reminder that my birthday is on Saturday, May 18th. I won't be here over the weekend, but I will have access to my office if anything should magically appear. Birthday presents. Well wishes. Careful.